welcome to Lesson 21 of Client-Side Web Development. And today we're going to be talking about working with the DOM, or Document Object Model. So we're going to look at how the DOM standard makes dynamic pages easier to control, the basics of the DOM, how to work with nodes, parents, children, siblings, how to access and use the properties of DOM nodes, how to access and use DOM node methods, how to control elements positioning with JavaScript, how to hide and show elements with JavaScript, and how to use JavaScript to add or modify text within a page. So one advantage that JavaScript gives you over HTML is the ability to manipulate the web browser and documents after the content has been uploaded. So JavaScript uses the hierarchy of the parent-child relationships found in the DOM, and the objects in the DOM have properties that describe the web browser or the documents. So to refer to a DOM object, you use the parent object notation followed by the child objects. For example, if you want to get at a object with the ID of logo image, you would say window.document.logo image, and that would get at that node with the ID of logo image. So a couple of the window objects that you have available to you. So the window object in JavaScript has a number of different objects that you can manipulate. So we're going to look at three of these. The document object, which we've already used a lot in our in a lot of our examples. The location object, the history, and the navigator. All right, so let's look at the document object. So the document object represents a web document. I gotta fix this. Information about the document includes the URL, the title, the referred, the last modified, cookies, and images. And generally, you can use the document.write, which we've used in the past. We don't like using that going forward, but it's a good way if you just wanted to write something out to the web browser, or at least to your page. You could do that using the document.write. So let's go ahead and look at one of the examples here. So here's our index.html. And as one of the examples, what we do is in our script here, we just do a document.write and then give it a piece of HTML. So we're going to write this paragraph out here. And we're going to compare it to these two, which are written from the HTML, and these are written from JavaScript. So let's go ahead and write this, run this. So here we go. We have the output here. So this line is what's coming from the JavaScript, and we use the document.write. All right. The next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at using links and anchors. In order to do that, you can use the document.links array to access individual links. And here's an example of one. If you wanted to get at the href, you can print that out. So in our example here, I do have, let's go back here to links. So here I have a bunch of links, Google, Apple, Microsoft, links all going to different tabs here. So I'm going to go ahead and print the links, click this print links, and what it does is it's going to output different parts of the link. So let's look at our code and see how we did that. So let's go over to the links HTML, and here we print out our anchor tags, and I have this print links button that calls this print links function in our JavaScript. And the JS file that has the links, this print links, is this links.js. So if I go over to the links.js, here's print links, and what we're doing here is we're getting the links element by ID. And if we go back to our links over here, we see that, oh, the ID is this div. So this div is where we're going to actually print everything out. So that's why we have this links here. Then we have the string. And then what we're doing here is we're going to go ahead and loop through all the document links. So if you look over here, these are the elements of the array. So we do document.links.length. So this array should be, there's 3 anchor tags. So if you look over here, we have these links here. Oh, we did a link there. So how is this working? Because this should not have... I'm going through this link. Oh, because it's going through all the anchor tags of my links. So it's doing all these. Oh, I see. All right. Yeah, so what it did is I'm going through all the HTML links, and it's iterating over all those. So I print out the href for all of those links in here. And that's what you're seeing when you're seeing here is these are the hrefs for the links on my menu, and these are the hrefs for these links that I printed in my document. All right, so let's go on to the next. One of the other things we can do is we can access our browser history. So we can go ahead over here, click on history, and we can do a couple of different things. We can show our history length. So our history length is 3. So that means we've gone through, in our browser history, we have 3, at least off this page, we have 3 different links that we've traversed from. So if I want to go back, so this is the same as hitting your browser back button. But if I want to go back, this basically takes me back to link. And I'm going to go back to history. If I want to go forward, well, actually, yeah, let's do this. I'm going to go to to-do list, right? And I'm going to go back. And if I go forward again, it should take me back to the to-do list, which it does, because that's where I came from, or that's where I was before. All right, if I want to go back to, so if I do this, go to links, and go to history, if I go back to, it should take me back to the to-do list there, which it does. All right, and then I have Go Google. If I click on that, it takes me to Google. And then if I want to print my location, this shows that my current page is the history.html. It's the current page. This is the IP address of the web server that's serving all this up, what port, etc. So how did I do that? Let's go over to history. So we'll go and do history. And again, here are all the buttons that I created here, and they call different functions in this history.js, and then I think it's all getting printed out. in my in this paragraph tag here. So I think that's where I'm printing it out. So let's go ahead and take a look at our history.js just to see what it's doing. We'll start at show length. So here I just get my history length. So here I take the window.history and then get the length, and then I just print it out. And I'm printing it out to this length. So let's go back here. So this length, so it just puts it in this paragraph tag right here. All right, so let's go back here. Yeah, the go back is just taking the window history and calling the back method on function on it. Same thing with the window history forward. If you want to go back 2, you give it a -2. That goes backwards as many in your history. Go Google, you can just change the location, href, and it'll change the browser's current location. Once you do that, it's like clicking a link. Then the last thing is this print location. We get all of the location is the current URL web address, and it grabs all the information from the current web address: protocol, host name, port, etc. That's all the things we printed out there. Okay. Again, we talked about the location object. We printed most of these out already in our example. Couple other ones that I didn't do in our example was the assign. It loads a new page. The reload reloads the current page, and the replace replaces the current location with a new one. So, all right. More about the DOM structure. So, one thing you have to realize with the DOM structure, every element on your page is a node. So if you look at your typical web page, so I'll go back to the history here. Everything here is a node. So the script the script element, the H1 element, the paragraph, the P's, the H2 section, all these are nodes that are accessible from JavaScript. And each node can be set up as parent and children. So if you look at the structure of your HTML page, section is the parent of all of these. H1, H2, because it's one level in, these are the children of the section element. And again, if you go up here, these UL, the UL tag, the UL element is a child of the nav element. So you can see the structure of your HTML depicts the structure of the nodes, the parent and the children of the nodes. And then the sibling are objects that have the same parents. So going back here, in this H1 and H2 are siblings because they all have the section as the parent here. So working with, there should be DOM nodes. So working with the DOM nodes, so the basic node properties is the node name, the node type, the value. This is the actual text contained within the text node, and the inner HTML is any HTML content in any of the nodes. So node relationship properties. So you can get you can go to a node and you get the first child, you can get the last child. You can do child nodes and get an array that includes all of the children nodes, child nodes. Then you get the previous siblings, next siblings. So all these properties gives you a way of navigating the tree structure of your HTML page. So you can navigate through using JavaScript the entire page if you want it, just traversing all the parent and child nodes. The other way to get to a node, which we've been using, is the get element by ID. So what we've been doing is we've been assigning our elements an ID and calling get element by ID to get that element by its ID. But if you do this, you have to make sure that ID is unique. So here I have two IDs here. I have a length ID and a location ID. And I use both of these IDs. Generally, I'm using these IDs to print out information. But I need to use that get element by ID. And if you noticed, I believe I did that on the location. Oh, I did it both. I did it both for the length to print out the length information, and also for the location to print out all this location information on that element. All right. So and you can also get an element by tag name. So if you want to get all the paragraph elements, you can do that, and it'll return a collection of all the paragraph elements on there. So if you said, get all my paragraph elements, so you give it the tag name of P, and it'll return everything on the page. That's a paragraph. You can create a text node so that you can add it to another node. You can create an element. So you can go ahead and create an element, any HTML element, by just giving it the tag name of that element, and it'll create it. So a lot of power, a lot of flexibility there. And then you have some node methods, so you can append a child, insert before, another node, replace a child, remove a child, see if it has any child nodes, and you can even clone a node if you want. You can also create a positionable element. So first thing you have to do is you have to make sure that that element has position equals absolute on it. And then if you do that, you can just set its top pixel location. Let's say you have an element called layer 1, and then give this the top style of 200, and that will move the element over to 200 there. Visibility, you can make a object visible or invisible by changing its visibility style to hidden. And then if you want to make it visible again, you can set it to visible. So it's a good way to hide and unhide objects. The other thing you can do here is you can modify text in a page, again, by changing the node value of a particular element. So here we say the headings, first child, node value, I want to change it to new text here. And then finally, you can go ahead and add text to a page by creating a text node and then appending the child to that node. All right, so just as a practical demonstration, created kind of like this little to-do list application. Again, this is using everything that I went over in the previous slides as far as manipulating the DOM. So here I can kind of create a test to-do list, so I can add multiple to-dos here. And now if I want to remove the to-dos, say I want to remove these two to-dos, I just check off the to-dos I want to remove, hit remove, and it deletes them. So how do we do that? Let's look at our code here. Let's look at this to-do list. So if you look at our HTML page, it's pretty simple. We have this input element, so that's where you type in the your to-do text, and then you have an add and remove button. We have a to-do.js, this is where our code is, and we're calling two methods. So when we click on the add button, we have this add method, and when we click on the remove button, we have a remove method. And then all the to-dos are going to go into this list div that's over here. So let's go over to the to-do.js and see what this does. All right, so I got to go to my other to-do here. Just want to make sure that's there. Okay, so let's start with the add. What do we do? So first thing we do is we get that input element where we entered the text. In my example, I entered test. So I grab that input element. I want to check to make sure that the value isn't null or blank, because if it's null or blank, I don't want to add it, right? So if I go over here, let's remove all these. I can add something, but only as long as I have something in there. If it's blank, I get a message that says, hey, can't create a blank to do, right? But if I have anything in there, I can, when I click add, it actually adds it. And that's what this code does here. It pops up that alert that I can't add a blank to do, right? Next thing I need to do is I need to get that div that's got the ID of list, because this is where I'm going to put my to-dos. And now here I'm creating the paragraph element. So I have to actually go ahead and create the element. So I create the paragraph. I create an input element, and then I create a text node that has that input value, whatever I typed into, and the value is the text that I typed into the input box, that input text box. So the first thing I want to do is I want to set the type on my input to the checkbox, so that checkbox appears. And then what I do is I append to the paragraph. I'm going to append the checkbox first, and then put the to-do right next to the checkbox. And then I'm going to append the paragraph to the list. So you can actually see over here, if I right-click and do an inspect, you can see how it's built everything out, right? And actually, you could probably see the DOM change. So the DOM is being manipulated real time. So let's say I wanted to go and delete these three things. I do a remove. You're going to see the DOM change down here, and all these paragraph tags get removed, right? So now I'm going to hit remove. Boom. And now you notice now we only have one paragraph tag on there, because it removed all the other ones that were there. So the nice thing about it is if you go in here, you can see it dynamically changing the DOM. And you can see the structure of the DOM. This is the paragraph element I created. And then here you have that div where I'm putting it, that list. So that corresponds to this list.append where I'm adding the paragraph. So I'm doing this in two steps. I'm creating the paragraph tag, because this is where I'm going to put my checkbox and my to-do text. And then the paragraph is what gets added to the list div. Then the next function is the remove. So how am I going about removing everything? Well, first of all, I have to get I'm going to have to get the list element, and then I want to get all the child nodes of the list element, and that's going to be all my paragraph tags. So that gets my paragraphs, and then I create this empty array or empty array variable to hold all the to-dos that I'm going to remove, the ones that I checked off. So I look through the paragraph tags, and what I want to do is I want to check. So here I'm grabbing the paragraph. Then I grab the to-do, the child node of the paragraph, and each paragraph should have two child nodes. The checkbox, which should be 0, and then the actual to-do text. So right here, I'm just grabbing the checkbox, because that's the first one, and I check to see if it's checked as true. That means someone checked it off, because I only want to remove the ones where I've checked off. And then I put, if it's been checked off, I put it on the removal list. So this for loop goes through all of them, putting everything on the removal list. And then what I do down here is I have this for loop that goes across that removal list, and it removes the it removes all the children on that list, one at a time. Okay, so I think that's how that worked. And the nice thing about this example is it illustrates how all of this works. And again, if you need to go back, you can look at this video. And what I would do is I would just pause it so they can look at the code and how everything is laid out here. And same thing for the remove. I would pause it here, and then you could see how exactly everything was laid out. And there's also other examples of the to-do, but you could see most of it's using all the things we learned: the remove child, append child, get element by ID. Everything we've covered in this chapter is covered in this to-do list. All right, so that's all I have for today. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, we will see you later.